This podcast contains strong language and discussions about relationships, sex, and love. It may not be suitable for younger listeners. This is the Sex and Singapore City podcast, and I am Nick Selena. Hi, everyone. Happy Monday evening. Thank you for joining me for tonight's episode. This was a request from one of my dearest listeners. They sent me a DM on Instagram and I was like, girl, I got you. This is called Zombies. The Dead Don't Stay Buried. What is a zombie, Nick Selena? Why are you talking about like horror movie shit on your podcast? Chill for a second. Let me fill you in. If you haven't heard of the word zombie or zombieing when it comes to dating, this is it. Zombies are people that ghost you, okay? Then after time passed, could be a couple of weeks, could be a few months, they suddenly come back from the dead and hit you up again. Or it could be they call you out the blue, or they drop a casual like on one of your Insta photos, or they slide into your DMs, or they like your TikTok video, or they WhatsApp you, hey. It's always just like that, hey, hi, what you up to? As if nothing fucking happened. To ghost you, okay, we're going to take a back step for those who don't know that. That's when you're dating someone or casual, whatever. Perhaps you've been on a few dates. Perhaps you're in a relationship. I have done a whole episode on ghosting. Please go and find it. It's very informative. You get ghosted when they just suddenly disappear. And you're like, what? 1 minute, text, calls. Perhaps you're even fucking or whatever, dating, great. You're like, oh my God, I'm excited about this person. And then nothing. They don't answer your calls anymore. They don't answer your texts anymore. They leave you on a blue tick on WhatsApp. They don't fucking look at your shit anymore. And you're like, what have I done? It's extremely upsetting. It's very cruel. It's very odd to me. And if you have listened to my other episode about ghosting, it really hurts my heart because it really causes a lot of problems to the person who's been ghosted because they internalize it all, of course. And it's like, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? We rarely go, you're the one, you're the cunt that ghosted me. It's always like, oh, I fucked up. Maybe he didn't like me after a while, So the zombies are those fuckers that ghosted you, that come back from the fucking dead and drop in a, hey. Like, what? As if nothing ever happened. Zombies can come back like months and years later, by the way. It can be, I've honestly always said on repeat, every guy that I dated, especially in my 20s, even if they would say a mental, whatever, bro. Anything really degraded me, I don't want a relationship with you. Even if they walked out, no, I don't want commitment, you're too much, whatever. They would always come back. I didn't realize at the time I was dealing with zombies, but that's what I was dealing with. About 6 months later, the average was 6 months of complete silence, disappear. And one of them, as an example for you, I dated him for 3 months. He was at my flat 3 or 4 times a week. I really liked this guy. He met my friends. We would go out together. Sex was great. In fact, I think he was there the day I moved into my flat to help me and stuff. And then he was like, oh, can't do commitment. And 1 a.m., got out of my bed and just left. And I was so fucking hurt because in my head, this was boyfriend. I'd been with him for 3 months and it was constant, and that was it. Done. Really, really hurt. By the time I got over it, so this particular boy, he zombied back in about a year later. And it was Christmas Eve, we were out, and he saw me out and then just basically wouldn't leave me alone. And then the texting started. And I was just like, yeah, it's just not okay because I spent so long getting over him. I don't want him back on my case again. So I think this is pretty topical as well, because it seems to have been like zombies seem to have been resurrected more because of the pandemic as well. I feel like people are recycling old people, or people are stuck and bored at home, or getting lonely and feeling like, oh, I just want a shag, or whatever it is. For some reason, zombies have definitely come back in full force, like Walking Dead, since the pandemic. So, to make a clear clarification before we move on, ghosting is when they vanish and never come back. That's it, done. Zombies is when you got ghosted and then they come back, okay? If you heard of the term breadcrumbing, you're like, what the fuck is this episode, Nix? Breadcrumbing is also different to zombieing. So breadcrumbing is when they like drop you, a cheeky little like on your Insta, or like lol on your stories, or maybe a little emoji on your TikTok video, anything like that. Not actually texting you directly, not messaging you and saying, hey, how are you? What are you up to? How's things with you? Not that. Just these random keeping fingers in pies kind of vibe, dropping little breadcrumbs, just making sure they're still there. Oh, you're making sure you're still on the peripheral for them if they ever need you. Okay? That's breadcrumbing, because there's no actual initiation of hanging out or direct conversation with you, actually giving a shit. If they do that, if it's the hangout, hey, how are you? I was wondering if you want to grab a coffee. Hey, how are you? What are you up to? Like, fill me in. That's zombie land, okay? Here's the question. How do you deal with zombies? What do you do? Do you give them the second chance? I know you want me to give you a black and white answer, yes or no. It's really hard. Because sometimes, I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt here. Sometimes people zombie because they're not actually ready for anything serious at the time. Perhaps they are confused and there may be other people around, other women or men that they're dating. Perhaps they ghost and then zombie because they didn't realize at the time actually how much they liked you. Now, we always live in this world where we don't know what we got till it's gone. It's sadly fucking true. So for me, sometimes zombies don't stay buried, because actually what happened is they ghosted you because they were dealing with some shit. They didn't realize actually the connection you had. They probably didn't appreciate it. And that silence time, that disappearing act, actually made them realize, like, fuck, I actually really miss her. It's been 3 months or 6 months and she was fucking cool. And maybe I've dated other women and they're not the same. And I actually didn't realize how lovely she was until I've dated other people. So in that case, the zombie could be a positive thing for you. It could be someone that's gone, I've kind of realized your worth and I'm fucking sorry. So yes, on that level, I'd say if you really like them and you felt the connection too, yeah, you should give them a second chance. It's highly unlikely. The majority is they're probably chasing a booty call. They're probably bored. They're probably doing this to other women. Or men. I know, guys. I know, gender. I just always talk about it from my point of view. Sorry, not fucking sorry. But there might be, other women flying around. You might be one of many people they're zombieing. And I think that's what it's got to be case by case. But I think what you've got to do is work out how secure you feel in this resurrection. Do you feel that they are into you specifically, or do you feel that they just want some attention from anyone who responds? I also want you to stay aware of red flags. I know it's fucking hard to see red flags. I know this because even when I was 29, I ignored every red flag on the planet and got seriously fucked for 4 years. So I get it. But I don't want that high of getting attention back again from someone you really liked, that little hit of dopamine, I don't want that to override red flags for you. Keep your eyes, ears, heart, everything open, and understand that they did ghost you. You can't have a zombie without a ghost, okay? So this person didn't sit you down and say, do you know what? I've loved a few weeks, I've loved a few months, I've loved a year, but I actually can't do this anymore. I've got my own problems I'm going through, or I don't know if we're a match, and I'm so sorry, but it's the end. They didn't fucking do that. They ghosted you. They just disappeared. So you've got to really think about that person's mentality. And honestly, if it was me, with every zombie, I'd be concerned that I'm going to get ghosted again. I'm like, what? I can't trust you to hang around longer than 3 months because you might fucking disappear again. And it was really painful the first time, you know? So how do you trust that the zombie is back for good? I think it comes down to how they handle it. If there's apology, if there's a sincere fucking apology, if there is a reason why they ghosted you, if there is an explanation to it, if they're just genuinely honest and say, do you know what? I fucked up. I didn't actually appreciate you back then. Yeah, okay, or I was dating someone else, or it was an overlap with someone else and it was a bit messy and I just didn't want to get anyone else involved and I was a bit of a coward and I didn't know how to end it and I didn't want to hurt you and all I've done is hurt you anymore. If there's a sincere conversation and apology, that's when I'm like, okay, cool, I think it's okay to go down this live, right? 9 times out of 10... 9.5 times, 9 and 3. Mostly, this isn't the case. And I think the major red flag is being ghosted in the first place. That's number one done. And I think anyone that can shut off and shut down like that has it in them to do it again. And you've got to feel secure and trustworthy in that relationship, if it becomes one, that's not going to happen again. But can I just say, should you want the zombie back for some fun yourself? Hallelujah, girl, go for it. Just because they come back like, oh, I really like you, wherever. Nah, if you want to have fun, you want to have sex, you're like, well, this person was a great shag. We had a good connection. I haven't had sex for 5 months or whatever. Here they are. If you're in control in that way, emotionally stable in that way, yeah, why the fuck not? Fuck it. Literally, fuck it. Just be aware of what you're doing and be understanding of what you want from it, and never forget that they ghosted you in the first place. What I will go back to and say, I'm going to circle back to my main point, is yes, every guy in my 20s has always come back. Always, 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 always hit me up again. And half the time, they wanted a proper relationship the second time round. And I just didn't fancy them anymore. I just weren't attracted. But it just seemed to be a common thing. Like, I always was like lamenting about it. Like, why don't these guys like me when I like them? Because any time you come back in my life, when the zombie came out from the earth and come back and stalked me, I don't fancy you anymore. Or I'm dating someone now. Like, even recently, I had someone who ignored me for weeks. I really wanted to go on a date with him, right? This was after my breakup with my ex. I wanted to go on a date with this guy. Good looking guy. I felt there was a vibe. Then there'd be like a 3 or 4 week gap of no communication. And then there would be a drop of WhatsApp and then we'd talk. And then I'm like, okay, let's go for beers. Let's go for beers. Let's go for beers. I just really wanted to meet him. He was definitely my vibe. He was definitely my style as well on Insta. Like, very much Insta chatting, liking each other's shit, watching each other's shit. But I never actually met him. And then I asked him, I think we're like the 3rd time for beers. Like, dude, let's go. I think it was a 4-week silence. He read that. Nothing. I was like, oh, well, that's a fucking disappointment. Anyway, obviously I meet the love of my life and all is well. The guy finally texts me back. Yeah, it was actually over 4 weeks. It was over a month. I think the last one was a 6 week no contact. Finally texts me back and was like, hey, cool, like, back on the vibe of drinking, super free to hang out, like, whenever you want beers. And I'm like, bro, I haven't heard from you since March. I'm now in a relationship. Like, I've met someone too late, too fucking late. And yeah, and then when I said that, like, you know, I'm like, cool to hang out with him. I'd love to hang out with him. I think we get on really well, but as a friend, because I'm now in a relationship. And then he read that and just never responded again. What? You've left it over a month to reply to like the third time I fucking asked for beers. And then when I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, actually with someone now, but like would be cool to chill. Then I don't even get a reply. What? But he also looks at all my shit. I just don't get it. That's like probably the closest I've had to a recent zombie vibe. But I like luckily obviously met someone and I just wasn't chased. I'm like, okay, if someone doesn't text me back for over a month, right? That's an out for me. Even 3 weeks. If you've read my text and you don't respond and you just don't say a word, but you're also obviously on social media at the time, I'm out. Not interested. So when you're dealing with zombies, this is like the kind of, I guess, pinnacle idea you need to have is your own boundary on what you're willing to accept or not. And if you're like me and you're like, you know, I like the communication. I like to feel I'm secure. I like to feel like I know where I stand. Then, yeah, no, it's not okay. And they got to fucking go. You need to bury the dead, people. Bury the fucking dead. I hope this episode has helped. I understand there's lots of grey areas and I've given like, yes, it could work. No, it couldn't. But yes, it could. It has to be that way because it is case by case at this point. And only if you feel the zombie has really explained themselves, has really tried, is actually very different in a vibe, and, you know, has given you the apology for ghosting you, then yes, of course, you can try. You can also date them for fun if that's what pleases you and that's where your head's at, you know. You're allowed to be in the fucking driving seats too, you know. It's like, it's not all up to them. But generally, I think probably better to let the dead stay buried. My opinion. And that is the end of this episode. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Sex and Singapore City podcast. This episode was produced and hosted by me, Nick Selena, and recorded at the Splicecast studio in Singapore. I'm available to listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and all major podcast listening apps. Do subscribe to enjoy a new episode every Monday evening. Please do give me a 5-star review. It helps other people also find my podcast. For more awesome content and features to read, you can check out my website, sexandsingaporecity.com. That's sexandsingaporecity.com. I'm also on social media. Simply search at Nick Selena, Nixalina, to find me. Don't be shy. Come say hi.